Here we go.
I wanted the movie to feel like a constantly escalating nightmare for the main character.
It's about trauma and mental illness and facing our demons, and as trauma tends to do, it creeps back up.
This is going to be an interesting kind of ride. Terrifying, hope sometimes humorous, I hope. Maybe I've got a sick sense of humor, but...
Basically, it's like a 90-minute long panic attack.
Do you think that if a dream feels real enough, it can affect you in the real world?
The short, Laura Hasn't Slept, we were all set to premiere the short at 2020 South by Southwest, which got canceled last minute because of the beginning of the pandemic. But they went ahead and did all of the judging anyways, and we won the special jury award.
Following South by Southwest 2020, we heard about this incredible short film that had blown people away, Laura Hasn't Slept. And some colleagues and I were able to track down a link to see the short, and it more than lived up to the hype. It really blew us away.
I am sure the vision and the goal was to make something that would become something else.
It's like a mask, but it's not a mask because it's also a face.
My agent certainly hoped it would become a feature film. I definitely did too. It was very lavish for a short film, honestly, so it felt like it was definitely always going to become something else.
Visually, it was incredible. The building of it and the scares and the practical special effects of it and the way like the camera told the story, the set design told the story. That's what drew me to it.
It was the uniqueness of Parker's vision and style. And so what he was capable of doing on a short film, getting this emotion and energy and thrill and scare within a matter of minutes on a limited budget was really kind of exciting to see what he would have to do with something the size of a feature.
Laura Hasn't Slept. Once I was in post finishing that short, this idea for a much larger movie sort of emerged from that. That was sort of its own thing as well. I think the DNA of Laura Hasn't Slept is running through it, but I'm always interested in challenging myself to do something new, so I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a retread of the short. When I met with Paramount and Temple Hill, they seemed really intrigued by the version of a feature that I was talking about.
It was an incredibly fast and smooth development process. The first draft Parker showed us became essentially the draft we were greenlit off of. It was a huge testament to both Parker and what he was able to accomplish in the draft, how clearly it communicated his vision, and a huge testament to our partners at Paramount who saw it and got it completely and immediately.
The producers, how they sort of interacted with me as a first-time feature filmmaker. I think what they were really helpful in was helping me navigate the studio system and the machine and all of the sort of invisible stuff that has to happen to get a movie prepped. And they definitely allowed me to just try to focus on the creative side of things.
At the core of it, it's finding a really talented, experienced team of department heads to surround him with who both fully get and appreciate his vision and have fantastic ideas to help bring it to life.
A lot of the other people that I'd worked with who were first-time directors had done a lot of music videos and commercials and things like that, so I think that had a bit more on-set experience. But you wouldn't know it with Parker. Like, he's a very intelligent guy that's very well read, and I think he knows a lot about set and everyone's roles, but he really knows what he wants.
See it one more time?
Yeah, should we get our first team in?
Yes, get it going. Please. Parker.
I have to give Paramount a lot of credit for believing in the script and in me and getting behind it in a way that was really supportive. And I wasn't sure what to expect about entering the studio machine, but they were great partners.
This is a safe place.
Not for me.
I was so impressed with Caitlin on Laura Hasn't Slept, and when I wanted to do the feature, I wanted to have a sequence early in the film that was not the same, but a parallel to the short that involved a similar character. And there was nobody else in my mind that could have played that role. I wrote it specifically for Caitlin, and she came back and just hit it out of the park.
I'm not sure I understand.
It looks like people. It looks like different people.
In terms of getting into character, I envisioned just an animal. Laura has one goal and one ambition, and it's to survive, but she doesn't have any answers. Every decision I made as Laura in that place was one of desperation. Like, when you are at the extreme point of any emotion that is like survival-based, if it's anxiety, if it's fear, if it's anger, you become very animalistic.
What happens when you do see it?
Your behavior is, you know, it's all your lizard brain.
It's smiling at me.
She's basically just become an instinct rather than a person.
I often love writing impossible tasks for actors and then convincing them they can do it. Getting actors to push themselves and to tackle really complicated things. Caitlin, she came out and we worked on how it was all gonna happen, but honestly, it's all about being on the day in front of the camera and just having the confidence to go for it.
Well done, Caitlin.
Parker's a very clear vision of what he wants. On the performance side, it's hard to find guys who can give a good acting note and also are like special effects driven, creature driven, things like that, that sometimes usually you lose one to the other. So to find a guy who can do both, it's pretty cool.
Blood and things like that are always really fun. They're also very time consuming and a mess and far more complicated than most audiences might realize.
Laura in the hospital, that was, you know, just a very deep, nasty slashed throat. Parker wanted it really just spouting blood. There must have been a half a gallon on the ground, and then, you know, some digital work. That's actually a really nice blend of practical and post effects, just because they'll get rid of what we did on the day until she's actually doing it, and then it'll reveal. And there's a real nice balance when you get just enough practical, just enough post, you can make something really unsettling.
Action.
We were looking for our Rose, and it is basically a character on a downward spiral whose life is becoming more and more nightmarish.
In this film that is a horror thriller, it is also very dramatic. And so it's important to have somebody who can show that. We need to be sympathetic to this character, and Sosie has that ability. She's been around movie sets for a while. She has family that has been in the industry, and so she's grown up around it.
Hold on, let me try. I can do it.
She just comes with a maturity to the filmmaking process.
3, 2, 1, stand.
Sosie Bacon, an extraordinary actress
That move feels good. Yeah.
who was ready, willing, and able, and frankly brave enough to go on a journey that was extremely intense and traumatic. Every scene is extremely, I think, demanding psychologically and physically. Not only was the work itself draining, but there was really no downtime for her.
This is a hard movie, and she brings it every single day.
She's in every scene, pretty much, and to work at that level of tension and fear and anxiety as an actor and have very little break in that is emotionally debilitating.
It's been a learning curve for me. I wasn't aware of like how much it would wear on me physically to be this heightened, stressed, anxious for so many hours a day. Like the toll it takes on your body is astronomical. I think it's like you have to be prepared for something like this in a different way.
It's a brutal thing to hold down the lead of a horror film when you're in sort of every scene and you're being traumatized over and over and over and over again. And all I can say about this wonderful actress is that she wasn't sparing herself at all. And she was in a marathon run of days.
Sosie's got this amazing ability to really bring out emotion and anxiety, and she can sort of fill that space of a character who is on that downward trajectory in a way that I've never seen before. And she threw herself into it in a way that I think blew everyone away.
That didn't work?
So, you know, her process is very, it's not like my own, where I feel like I feel things early on and then have to find them again. Whereas, you know, with her, I can almost watch her in rehearsals realize things as Rose. And it's really interesting. And then she's able to recreate it over and over and over again and explore it in very intricate ways.
Sosie has been amazing. She is legitimately like everything you want out of a co-star. She's everything you want out of a #1 on the call sheet. And she's just an incredibly talented actress, and she's very kind. It's just nice to enjoy working with the people you work with and to really respect the people you work with.
The board is down my throat about paying out of pocket for another bed in the residency program.
Maybe the board should try giving a shit about the point of our job here once in a while.
The direction behind it, I mean, we've all seen films or been part of films where the performances aren't quite up to par, and there might be a number of reasons for that, including whether you could or couldn't trust your director. And it seemed like Parker, in both talking to him and watching some of his earlier work, it was that perfect storm of casting people who he knew how to bring to life, and then having the real chops to be able to do it.
I don't feel that any of this casting really expect to see in a horror film. It kind of lends to the excitement and energy of it all, sort of take the audience off guard.
The blurred reality stuff is the stuff that I enjoy as a horror movie fan. I'm less about just straight up gore and more in the realm of something that could be possible, or you can at least understand how your mind could think something's possible, even if it's totally far-fetched. I always go back to The Shining, which obviously has incredible story structure, performances. The characters are so grounded, and it's mostly creepy because you can feel yourself going mad with Jack Nicholson's character.
Rose, what the fuck was that, Rose?
And cut.
Felt really good.
I dig it. It takes a specific type of horror film for me to enjoy the process. If I can't battle within my own mind about what this person is going through, then I'm not really interested. There has to be some type of real world experience or something that I can relate to in the horror film in order for me to get it. And I think that's why I was drawn to this movie, is because I like to observe people, and I'm really interested in wondering how other people's minds work in comparison to my own. I feel like Parker explored that with Rose, in the contrast with Trevor. Going through this experience together and trying to communicate to each other and relate things to each other, and they just can't.
Well, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
If that's how you feel, then why are we even together?
Why don't we all just take a breath and...
Why don't you just fucking make yourself at home?
Dr. Northcott is meant to be a barometer for what the truth is, what sanity looks like. And when you introduce a character like that into a world where the world itself is insane, the question of whether she'll end up being a protagonist or an antagonist is very much alive from the moment you meet her.
I find Robin to have this really interesting two sides of a coin to her. She's got this incredible softness to her that can cut through and connect. And then at the same time, she's kind of got this icy side that she can bring forward as well.
Almost time, Rose.
I think what's also fun about the script is that every character has its own flavor. It's not just this monochromatic, well-written script. Everyone has their own thing going on. I mean, Holly's probably the needed comedic relief. She's so obnoxious.
Gillian, she is, I think, probably the exact opposite of Holly in real life. And it was really fun to cast her in this role that was so different than who she is, but she stepped into it and really created this character. When we first meet her, we might find her absurd and ridiculous, and then as the film progresses, we realize oh, that's just her own mask that she's wearing, and that she also is somebody who has been living with trauma her entire life.
I was afraid of Holly kind of coming across as a caricature because she's so obnoxious. But he was no, push that. I really want you to sort of embrace the absurdity.
What the fuck is this?
Joel is a character that sort of zigs when we think the film is gonna zag.
Can you rewind it?
Kyle has been sort of quietly killing it for years in genre films.
Is he smiling? Rose, who are these people?
What I really like about him is that he's got this thing about him that makes you want to root for him right away.
Make the cop leave. Not gonna happen, pal. Make him leave, and I'll tell you what I know. What I found interesting about Roscoe while reading the script is that
Joel, please.
He's essentially the freest person in the whole script, but yet he's shackled in chains in jail.
We always knew that we needed somebody who was going to come in for this one scene and really just take over and command the screen.
One scene is more than enough. I feel the scene is very important to the entire movie. It reveals a lot of information. I approach that one scene as if it's the entire movie.
I've been a fan of Rob Morgan for a long time. He's a wonderful character actor who can oscillate between this really raw human side, but also can just unleash fury when he needs to.
Why the fuck did you come here? You're not gonna give it back to me? Get out of here! Get her away from me!
How a film is going to look and feel is really the director and the DP working together. Charlie was somebody who not only I admired him as a filmmaker, but also we had a friendship and a connection that made a lot of sense, which I think is really important for a director and a DP to see a film in the same way.
It was kind of a combination of being very wide and utilizing the environment, wide lenses, maybe a little bit more depth of field, having her small in frame, and then juxtaposing that with being right in there. Usually on a wide lens still, to be just intense, so you still see quite a lot of depth around her, and you sort of don't know what's going to be, you know, what's the next step? She's going to turn it around and then have some other horrific thing to sort of, you know, be in her face. We had a full array of lenses, and sometimes we would deviate from the 3 or 4 that we really love, but we would find that like 3 or 4 lenses would really tell 90% of the story. The 28's our wide lens, the 55's our more portrait lens.
How we lit the film was really important as well, that we wanted to take all of these spaces that were not inherently creepy or evil feeling, but present them in a way that would make them feel more and more uninviting.
In terms of production design, one of the ideas that Parker had that was incredibly exciting and that Lester Cohen has been doing was playing with how unnerving something very mundane could become.
Many years ago, I was researching a film and I ended up in a jail in Webo, Montana, and there was this insane pink color that I guess at that time, some psychological study had said this pink is calming and makes people less violent. So we sort of like tried to like insert that into this space, this sort of like Pepto-Bismol pink.
The hospital rooms are very eerie. I mean, it's colors that nobody would have anywhere else. Somebody probably thinks they're calming, but they're really just creepy. It feels very clinical and not personal at all. It's just a creepy place.
Lester Cohen has been doing just some of the best work at building worlds that feel both very grounded and yet also incredibly heightened and cinematic at the same time.
Like a lot of the stuff I typically do is very reality-based, and so it's kind of liberating to create, you know, another world and to live in a world that's like part dreamscape, and then, you know, that touches into reality, but even reality is not necessarily reality.
I got a lot out of working with Lester. It was great. We definitely would collaborate on, you know, where lights could be put when he was constructing things and the space that we would need for the equipment. And, you know, if I was thinking that a window might be better over this way or that way, just because we're going to light in and key someone from a certain side, he was always great with that. And because he's so experienced, he'd be like, okay, cool. If this is, you know, where the camera's going to be, I think, you know, this is probably where the windows are going to be. And I'd look at it and we'd go like, cool, yeah, that's great.
It's a weird coincidence. She was also interviewed about a suicide.
Alexis Forte is a brilliant costume designer, and we had a lot of discussions early on about wanting the wardrobe to reflect the characters' journeys through the film.
Alexis also helped us kind of come up with a wonderful way to help tell the story of Rose's decline over a very short period through the changing of her wardrobe from something that is very polished and professional to something that is increasingly reflective of her need to grasp for any aspect of comfort, to then something that looks much more completely undone.
With the character of Rose, we liked the idea of her seeming like more pulled together in the beginning, and she's a little more stylish, and then sort of breaking that down. And by the end, she's just in a hoodie and a big oversized coat. And then even the pattern at the end is like this broad, more chaotic pattern on her coat, which was fun to like have that transition, which is hard to do when you only have 5 script days to try to get a narrative story in with just, you know, like 5 to 6 looks. But we had a good time doing it, and it was so great to work with Sosie, so collaborative. And in scenes where there are visions, either myself or Lester, the production designer, we try to incorporate an element of yellow. For the closing, when Joel is a vision, he has these yellow socks on. Dr. Desai, when he's a vision and rips his face off, he has a yellow tie. And then when he comes out to the car, he's in the exact same look. And it's the same tie, but with a green variation instead of the yellow.
Rose, don't go anywhere! Hey, Rose, please. Please don't go anywhere. Rose, wait!
The location for the film, I wouldn't say that it has a real focus on the fact that it's in New Jersey, but New Jersey is sort of a lifeblood running through it. The intention was to shoot New Jersey for New Jersey. I know a lot of times people cheat cities for other places, but we fell in love with the mix of the industrial and all the greenery.
I think it's important to own the location and make that a character. There's a lot of films happening these days, and they'll run around for tax rebate purposes, and they're sort of ambiguous as to where they're set. And I get it, economics, all that stuff, but it's sort of like growing up watching films, I was always like, where is this? Like, what is it? What's the town? What's the city? It's important to me. And the more I got to learn about Jersey, I realized there's so many amazing spots there. And to shoot a film, it's really diverse. Like the locations, you can be in the woods, like there's beautiful forested areas and green areas and suburban like villages with all different sorts of demographics. And then you've got more urban kind of grit, old school kind of like, you know, your Newarks and even parts of Jersey City, or these amazing bridges, the rivers that sort of lead into Newark, and it's this industrial kind of wasteland. As a state to shoot in, yeah, I think it offers a lot.
Parker had the fantasy of building everything. I think he really likes stagecraft. He likes the control that offers. We unfortunately weren't blessed with that kind of money. So we knew that, you know, the dilapidated house, because it involves the monster mom and all this other stuff, and we're gonna have a fire, it felt like that was definitely going to be on stage.
Holy shit. Damn. Fucking hell. Wow.
So that was what we initially were planning on building, and then we lost our hospital location at the last minute.
Shooting during COVID, where every hospital is incredibly busy and every inch of every hospital is being utilized, that was going to be off the table.
Which forced us to build this hospital set in a very compressed amount of time. We were going to transpose this same color palette to the location, but it certainly allowed us to create the scale and exact geography that worked for, you know, Parker's shots. You know, he's the director who preconceives a lot of the way the camera moves ahead of time. So it's nice to be able to actually, you know, make space that works for those shots, as opposed to trying to make the shot work for the space, which is what ends up happening often on location.
Lester came up with incredible ways of really building a huge amount with very little that, you know, was able to bring so much personality and life to this world incredibly well.
It's a studio film, but in a way it's felt a little bit like an indie film. And there's a lot of energy and excitement. Just because we aren't able to do something, I don't feel that it's hurt the film. A lot of times what it does is forces us to think outside the box and in a different way. And I find 9 times out of 10, when we are doing that, we're coming up with a more interesting and creative idea and solution.
You wished that I would die. Because I was afraid of you! I was 10 years old! And you were a monster!
There's definitely a few things in this film that really frightened me, which is why I wanted to make it. What it might be like to have your mind turn against you and not being able to trust your own reality and you know, the feelings of paranoia and anxiety. Those are frightening things to explore. And to go along with that, the feeling of not being believed. Your closest friends and family not believing you and actually pushing away from you. I think that's a universal fear that almost anyone can relate to.
I don't like gore and horror and like fear for fear's sake, but I do like when there are complicated themes that just happen to be scary. I cannot imagine what it's like to not be able to trust your own brain. And not being able to trust your own brain is the scariest thing in the world to me.
It does look at trauma.
You're gonna run out of the room like you did at the end, okay?
That is another thing that attracted me to the script. There's a layer of like somebody dealing with an horrific past and who's trying to cover things up from that past and just try and live a normal life. You know, we all put on the happy smile, kind of like, you know, but really what's going on inside, all these things from the past that might have affected us in a certain way, and I know that's happened with Rose.
The idea that we can't leave a legacy of trauma behind and that it's sort of chasing after us our whole lives.
And cut.
That seemed to give some teeth to the film.
Living with trauma can feel almost like you're cursed, and I wanted to sort of see like, what if we manifested that into a real curse and what that might feel like if you were actively being pursued by your trauma.
While the story is entirely about Rose and through Rose's perspective, a lot of what it's covering is what impact does mental illness play in someone's life, and particularly what does it do to their relationships and to those people in their life.
I mean, I think what's cool about the script is that it can be interpreted in a lot of ways. I was really excited about the idea of it being an interesting play into schizophrenia.
When Trevor is listening and watching all these crazy things happening, there is a moment that even me as an actor reading the script, like, oh my God, this is schizophrenia. This is a real life horror film. And that must be what it feels like. A part of Parker's process is letting you figure that out on your own. When I got that moment, I felt very confident in him and in this movie.
Rose's journey, which is a very solitary one. Just watching how quickly and believably her entire life, her support network falls away. How quickly she is completely alone, having to contend with something that is just beyond her ability to contend with, is the sort of thing that keeps me up at night. Is it just kind of stays with you of like, you look at your life and you're like, could it all slip away that quickly?
We wanted to put Rose back into her 10-year-old self and the feeling of this monstrous version of her mother who was dealing with mental illness and drug abuse and alcoholism from a 10-year-old's perspective at times would feel like a monster. So we wanted to manifest that into what that might feel like to adult Rose.
You can't escape your own mind, Rose.
We're providing two key moments towards the end of this transformation, and one of them is makeup, a very slender performer, and the other one is a complete bodysuit in case there's another performer.
Tom Woodruff is somebody whose work throughout the years I've always looked up to. He and Alec were part of the team that built the Alien Queen and Aliens. They built Pumpkinhead. They did all kinds of incredible practical effects work. And so for some of these specific effects we had in the film that I wanted to pull off practically, I wanted to go to these guys that in my eyes were legends.
The plan is that we'll stretch this over this, and then Kevin would reach up, pulling this back, so this will stretch and tear.
Close on her, and we'll have Marty maybe do this and stick his hands in her actual mouth, begin to pull, and cut out to that wide tableau, and he's just going for it.
That's right. Yeah. And with the final vision being really horrific. This image that Parker really wanted from the very beginning. He was very clear about it. And it's this big, wide shot, the monster, and you see Rose. Straighten up your legs. Yeah, like that. It's beautiful. He wants it to be beautiful but creepy at the same time. And there's puppeteering involved with the character of Monstrosity Mom because there's a person inside the bodysuit. But we also have puppeteering that we have to do on the Rose replica dummy that we did because Monstrosity has to try to take over her body by putting himself literally down her throat.
The image that we show the audience at the end of the film, I'd say, on the day, it being in front of the camera was this really surreal moment, seeing this image I had had in my head finally come to life all these months later.
I'm not in the suit this time. The two different characters are Kevin Kepi, who's playing Nightmare Mom, and there's Marty Martuis, who's playing Monstrosity. I enjoy watching these guys because they're experienced. They've done a lot of this kind of stuff. You're not just a person wearing a monster suit. You're another actor in the scene. It's a performance.
There's something that happens on set when you have practical effects and they're there and they're real and the actors can interact with them. It creates a certain kind of magic that is so additive compared to just purely relying on VFX or CGI. I mean, obviously, of course, there's certain story things you just cannot do practically, but I always want to push and see what can we pull off with practical effects. And I think it's partially that growing up watching movies with practical effects was one of the reasons I wanted to become a filmmaker.
And give us another big open of the mouth. And cut.
There's just like great stuff throughout the history of horror that, for me, are like some of the most impactful films.
You can't escape it either.
Certainly, hopefully a horror film is scary, but I think about the films that have had the most lasting impact on me, and it's often something that has a real human character-based element to it. A story, whether it has supernatural elements or whatever it is, it needs to succeed as a human drama story as well. We get hopefully so invested in the character that when all of the nightmarish things begin to happen, it gets under our skin that much more.
Can you see if you can find Mustache? I haven't seen him anywhere at all.
Yeah.
Rose, did you break another glass?
like she's actually trying to lose money. Oh, by the way, did you hear that fucking Diaz got the Pembroke account?
Yep.
I would cut my dick off for the Pembroke account.
Hey, you fucks here Diaz got the Pembroke account?
Fucking Diaz. Fuck.
I'll be right back. Are you gonna be okay for a sec?
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I'm a clinical psychiatrist.
You know, I read that statistically psychiatrists actually have the highest rate of suicide of any profession. Don't you find that crazy ironic? Although I suppose if I had to listen to a bunch of losers complain about their mommy issues all day, I'd probably want to blow my brains out too.
Champagne?
God, yes.
Hon, whoever he is, he ain't worth it. Trust me.
Stop it.
Rose!
Hello?
Hi.
Rose?
Oh, hi.
Is everything all right?
Oh, yeah, everything's fine. I'm so sorry to call so late.
Not at all. It's nice to hear your voice again. What's the occasion?
I know it's super last minute. I just was wondering if maybe I could, stop by tomorrow. Just to chat.
Tomorrow? My first appointment is at 9. I can meet you at my office at 8.
Great. I'll be there.
Rose, is there anything you feel you want to tell me right now?
No. No, it's not, that urgent. Trevor? Trevor. Trevor.
Jesus.
I just want to apologize for the way that I acted tonight.
It's okay. I just don't understand what happened.
Okay, so you know that patient that died in front of me?
Yeah.
I guess it's been affecting me more than I realized. Psychologically.
Psychologically?
I have this like overwhelming anxiety that won't go away, and I've been having panic attacks. And that's what happened tonight, and it could be a symptom of post-traumatic stress, which would totally make sense, but I've been keeping you in the dark about it, and that's not fair. It's just that I was embarrassed, and I'm sorry.
Panic attacks.
Hey, you don't have to worry, okay? I'm handling it. I'm seeing Madeline tomorrow.
Who?
The psychiatrist that I used to go to. I've mentioned her before.
Right. Was there anything that I can do?
No. You're great. Thank you so much for understanding. I love you.
I love you too. So what do you want to do?
I don't know.
I mean, do you want to go somewhere? I can stay with you.
No. I think I just want to be alone for a while.
All right.
Look, I should stop into work for a couple hours, but I'll check in on you as soon as I can. Just lay low. And if anything happens, or if you need anything, call me, okay? It's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay.